How are you? That was, okay, this side of the room is good. How are you? Good. All right, we've got about an hour, a little less than an hour together. We're going to have some fun. We're going to learn some things, but I have a rule. Here's my rule. You see, my program is not a monologue. It's not at all. In fact, it's going to be very interactive. I'm going to ask you questions. I'm going to ask you to participate. But here's my rule. When you participate, you must be 100% honest with your response. Are you good with that? Do you agree with me? The only way to truly grow personally and professionally is if we're 100% honest with ourselves. Do you agree? All right, let's get started. Let me ask you a few questions. Raise your hands if you want to leave here today more successful. Raise your hands if you want to leave here today a better, more extraordinary individual. Hey, now be honest. Raise your hands if you want to leave here today better looking. Can't help you on that one, my friends. Man, a lot of hands went up though, huh? There were actually a couple that should have, but I'm not going to point at those two guys. You know who you are, gentlemen. You know who you are. One of the very first billionaires on the planet was J. Paul Getty, and J. Paul Getty was once quoted as saying, the formula for success is very simple. It only takes three things. Three things: early to rise, work hard, strike oil. Thanks for having me. Good luck, everybody. Good luck. The formula for success is a little more difficult than that, but it's very simple, and this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the formula for personal and professional. Now check this out, please. Check this out. Sustainable success. Sustainable. I don't know about you, but I'm not interested in getting it today and losing it tomorrow. That's not what I do. And I'm pretty sure you're not interested in that, otherwise you wouldn't be spending all this time here. The formula for personal and professional sustainable success lies within our ability to create the most powerful, emotional, relevant, but this is the most important part in a world of commodities, one-of-a-kind, unexpected brand. Ta-da. That's it. Your ability to succeed at life at every single level, personally and professionally, is directly linked with your ability to create a powerful, emotional, relevant, oh my God, where did that come from? Nobody in the industry does this. Brand. How many of you believe awareness, marketing and advertising, how many of you believe awareness builds sustainable, powerful, emotional brands? Raise your hands. Oh, about half the room maybe. Good, except that's not 100% correct. Take it from me, folks. I owned and operated a national advertising agency for over 20 years. We dealt with Fortune 500 companies, mom and pop companies, and believe me when I tell you, awareness alone cannot build a powerful, sustainable brand. It can't. Awareness is exactly what it is. It's awareness. We're all aware of certain deadly diseases, aren't we? Does it mean we want to run out and get them? Just because we know about something, it doesn't mean we want it. And guess what else? Just because people know about you, who you are, what you sell, where you're located, how to get there, it doesn't mean they desire you. It means they're aware of you. Nothing more, nothing less. Emotional branding, which is what we're going to talk about. EQ, not IQ. Emotional branding is the reason why your customers evangelize you. Let me put this a little differently because this is the crux of my program and I really want you to get this. A powerful, and it doesn't matter what industry it's in, a powerful, emotional, one-of-a-kind brand will turn a typical customer into a raving, lunatic, loyal evangelist for life. Emotional branding boosts profits. It builds your bottom line. Believe me when I tell you this, you cannot be sustainably successful, profitable without a powerful emotional brand. It can't happen. So what exactly is emotional branding? It's an emotional connection a person has with another person or with an entire organization based on what? Based on an experience. Based on a unique experience. Folks, I'm talking about the most misunderstood topic in all of business, branding. I'm not kidding you. Some of the most misused, misquoted topics on the planet, this in corporate world is it, brand building. Some of the top executives in the world don't understand how to truly build a brand. I'm talking CEOs, COOs, CFOs, EIOs. They don't get it. Some of the top marketing gurus don't truly understand it. It's a very misunderstood topic. I'm going to say something else, and I'm not cheapening what you do and what you sell, but I've got to say this. You're selling commodities. Do you agree with me or not? You're selling commodities. I've done a lot of business in the C-store industry, believe me. I know what you sell. You're selling commodities, but here's what we're going to talk about today. How do you de-commoditize? How do you stop selling stuff and start selling something much more unique, much greater? I want to ask you all a question. Go back a slide, please. This is actually go back a slide, please. There we go. Now that you ruined my punchline. Gosh. I want to ask you a question. Who are you? What do you do? What do you sell? And I want you to think about this in a different way than you normally would. Who are you? What do you do? What do you sell? If somebody stopped you and they saw you walking across a parking lot or in a grocery store and they said, hey, you look familiar. What is it you do? How would you define what you do? Now, I want you to think about this. If somebody said, what do you do? How would you define it? No matter what your position is within your organization, whether you're the owner, manager, you work for IT, you're in accounting, it doesn't matter. What do you do? Now, let me tell you why I'm asking this. These are very important questions, and they're not that simple. Could you define what you do in a meaningful way? Now, I want to ask you another question, and think about this. If somebody said, what do you do? Could you define what you do in a way that actually creates intrigue? Where people say, hey, that's what? Tell me more. These are very important, and they're not that simple. I do a lot of consulting. And one of the first things I do is I walk into an organization, I say to leadership, give me a conference room. I need 10 of your people. I'm going to talk to them one at a time. I only need a few minutes of their time. One at a time, people come into this little conference room. Now, I do it verbally. We do it with surveys. I shake their hand and say, hey, I'm Scott Deming. What's your name? Oh, my name's John. Hey, John, let me ask you a question. What do you guys do here? What do you guys sell? 10 people all working for the same company, 10 different answers every time. It's known as perceptual reality. Here's what I mean by that. What you think you sell and what your customers would love for you to provide are two very different things. How well you think you're doing for them, how well they think you're doing for them are always two very different things. Perceptual reality. Their reality is the reality that counts. That's it. Let me ask you this question, and be honest. Raise your hands if you are in the convenience store business serving people. The whole room. Good. Except that's not 100% correct. Now, I know what you're thinking. This guy's a freak loaded with trick questions. I'm not playing with him anymore. I am a freak. Here's where we begin the paradigm shift. Here's where we start this little journey. No, please understand something. I'm a businessman. I've been in business for myself since I was 25, 26 years old. Every year we do, the business plan. We have to have P&Ls, quarterlies. I get it. But here's where I'm taking you. You're not in the convenience store business serving people. Here's why I say this. You see, if we get too wrapped up in all the things having to do with the business, and our focus is so focused on process and policy and procedure and pricing and delivery, you know what happens? Without even thinking about it, from employees to customers, relationships take a back seat. It's automatic. But let me promise you this. At any point in your life, any point, relationships start taking a back seat to anything else, you don't have a shot at creating that sustainable emotional brand. You don't. You're not in a convenience store business serving people. You're in a human being business. Don't ever forget that. You're in the relationship business offering the most unique, nobody in your industry does it, solution. Here's what I wrote. I don't believe that you're in the convenience store business. I don't believe you're selling stuff. I'm going to actually show you a little later how there's no such thing as product loyalty. Brand loyalty, but no such thing as product loyalty. But I wrote this down for you. I believe you're selling trust, relationships, convenience, security, value, a better quality of life, unique experiences cleverly disguised as a convenience store. Raise your hands if you agree with this. Believe me when I tell you, and you know very well when you go shopping, these are the things you're shopping for. This is the value you want. This is how you want to be treated. I want to show you a couple of brands. One of those brands, two of those brands are kind of related to you. One is not. Why would I show you a brand that is not related to you? I'll tell you why. You see, I speak all over the globe for every industry. And it doesn't matter if you're selling goods at a convenience store. It doesn't matter if you're selling shoes. It doesn't matter if you're selling bricks, prescription drugs. It doesn't matter. You see, it doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter where you're selling it. If there's a human here and a human here, and there's a transaction, an interaction happening, the process for creating the love, the trust, the loyalty is universal. It's universal. So I'm going to show you a couple of brands. You shout out what it is they sell. Starbucks, what do they sell? Coffee. Yep, kind of. They kind of sell coffee, but coffee merely gets them in the game. Coffee merely gets them in the game. It's the brand. It's the status. It's the association with hip, cool, and success that makes a sale and keeps their customers coming back and back and back. Ladies and gentlemen, quite honestly, Starbucks customers don't want to just be Starbucks customers. They want everybody to know they're Starbucks customers. And you know what else? Starbucks brand, not their coffee. Their brand is the reason why people feel the need to stand in line for 20 minutes, pay $5 for a cup of whatever, all to be approved of in the eyes of other human beings in the morning. I'm looking around. I'm making fun of Starbucks, and I see several people like this. I love my Starbucks. I don't like this guy already. Follow me closely, Starbucks lovers and Scott Deming haters. They want everybody to know they're Starbucks customers. Let's be honest. Do you think, honestly, when a person goes out in the morning and buys a cup of Starbucks, they go back to their office and pour it into a mug? Not until they've had a chance to circulate around the office a few times. Let everybody know how important and sophisticated they are. I'm smart. I appreciate the finer things in life. In fact, I'm so intelligent, I'm willing to stand in line way too long and pay way too much for it. That's the Starbucks brand. It's a powerful brand. Now, let me tell you something. Do you know that every single year since the inception of this company, Starbucks has participated in a national blind taste test? And do you know that every single year they come in third? Guess who beats them? You tell me. Dunkin' Donuts and who? McDonald's. You guys aren't even in market research and you know this stuff. According to blind taste tests, Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's has better tasting coffee than Starbucks. But guess what? You don't see people running around with a McDonald's cup like there's some big deal, do you? You want to know why? That's a commodity. That's a cup of coffee. You know what this thing is? This is a brand that I want to belong to, and I want others to know that I belong to it. Now, you want to talk about a commodity. How in the world does a commodity like coffee create this mega global cult-like brand? I'll tell you how. You see, Howard Schultz had a mission statement, and here's what it was. To enhance the human spirit. Founder, Howard Schultz. To enhance the human spirit. People working for him went, wow, what kind of coffee are we making here anyway? He said, it's not about the coffee. It's going to be a good lineup, really cool stuff. He said, but here's what I want. I want everybody who's waited on to feel like they're the only person on the planet at that moment in time. I want the experience to be so amazing that they're going to want to stay, listen to music, read, work, and sip a good cup of coffee. The coffee came last. Howard Schultz trained his baristas. And in fact, do you know that Starbucks spends more on training than they do on marketing and advertising? That's very uncommon in the corporate world. But you know what they train their baristas on? Not on how to pour a cup of coffee, not on how to stock the shelves and wear an apron. They train them on how to sincerely, passionately, and compassionately treat every customer so that that customer feels like the most important person in the world. And let me tell you something, it worked. It worked. I mean, they just took off. They became more ubiquitous worldwide than McDonald's. They had one of the best, most successful IPOs in history. Howard Schultz, early 2000s, says, man, this machine is running, can't be stopped. I'm going to take a leave of absence. They bring a new CEO in. I'm going to tell you a caveat, and here's why. I don't know anybody in this room. Now, if you're an owner or a manager, I don't know how successful you are. Let's assume everybody here is wildly successful, but guess what? It doesn't matter where you were back then and where you are right now. That does not guarantee where you'll be tomorrow if your focus changes. Listen to this. This is a machine that couldn't be stopped. This new CEO came in. You know what he was bent on? Not customer experience, bottom line growth. That was it. He said, you know what we need to worry about? We need to worry about quarterly earnings, and we need to worry about shareholder happiness. Bam. So guess what this man did? He started cutting training and cutting everything that had to do with enhancing the customer experience. And in less than a year, people started taking off. I can go elsewhere for a cup of coffee. They started leaving. By 2008, business got so bad, they shut 900 stores down, let over 13,000 people go. They fired the CEO. They brought back Schultz. Now, I want to tell you something. I'm telling you this caveat for two very simple reasons. Number one, you can't lose your focus. Number two, you have to understand something when you're selling a commodity. It's not about what you sell, it's about how you sell it. All these analysts were being queried. on Wall Street. When they started going down, everybody's being asked, oh my God, it must be the sign of the times. It's the recession. By the way, does anybody here remember what an awesome time 2008 was? Well, because of that, everybody thought that's what it was. It was the economy. It's the economy, right? You know what analysts were saying? It's not the economy. It's not the economy. One analyst started talking about brands that were amazing and never lost a penny during the most turbulent times in history. He talked about SAS Computer Software. He talked about Wyndham Hotels, Costco, Nordstrom, Southwest Airlines. Don't lay off, don't lose money during turbulent times. He said this. He said it's not because of anything or having to do with the economy, it's because it's no longer a unique experience. He said before you walk into a Starbucks and it was the most amazing, unique experience in the world. Now you walk into any Starbucks, close your eyes, order a breakfast sandwich and a cup of coffee, you could be at any fast food restaurant. You want to know what another analyst said? Listen to this. He said it has nothing to do with the economy. He said people are not willing to pay a premium price for a premium cup of coffee. People are very willing to pay a premium price and drive very far for a premium experience. That's the difference. Let me show you another brand. Shout out what it is they sell, please. Harley Davidson, what do they sell? Motorcycles. You're not catching on yet, but we got a lot of time. Yes, they sell motorcycles, but motorcycles merely get them in the game. And folks, I got to tell you something. All the stuff that you sell, it gets you in the game. That's all it does. It gets somebody in your store. But you know what the hardest part is? Keeping people in the game. Keeping great employees, keeping customers. That's it. Motorcycles get them in the game. It's the brand, it's the brotherhood, it's the Harley lifestyle that makes a sale and keeps their customers coming back and back and back. During a national television interview, one of the top executives at Harley was asked this question. You want to know why he was asked? Because while this man is being interviewed for 30 solid minutes on live television, he's talking about everything but product. He never mentioned a motorcycle, the hardware, the exhaust, nothing. He talked about soft things like people and culture and love, and he used the word lust for the brand. So finally the interviewer looks at him, he says, I got to ask you a question. What exactly are you selling? Now anybody else would have said, what do you, live under a rock? We're Harley. We sell motorcycles. You know what he said? He said, I'm going to tell you what we really, truly sell. We sell a 43-year-old accountant the ability to dress in leather, drive down a street in a small town, and make everybody afraid of him. I'm a wiry little man, but I drive this. It's not about the bike. I'm not knocking it. It's a great bike. But Harley owners and Harley riders aren't riding a bike. They're living the Harley life. And you want to talk about a group of brand evangelists? Here's why I'm bringing up Harley. These people have the Harley logo everywhere. Hat, shirt, jacket, belt buckles, belt wallets, key rings, coffee mugs, everywhere. And this is documented. I'm not making this up. I swear to you, I'm not making this up. Some of the top corporate executives on the planet have the Harley logo tattooed on their butts. On their butts. No lie. Now, you think it's funny or whatever, but I'm going to tell you something from the bottom of my heart. You all figure out a way to get your customers to tattoo your name and logo on their butts, then you've made it. That's the brand you want. So anybody familiar with this store? Anybody? Wegmans, grocery store in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Wegmans is a small company compared to many, many companies. But I want to tell you a funny story about Wegmans. You see, every year Wegmans, they come in the top 10 in Forbes 100 list, the best, or Fortune's 100 list, the best companies to work for. Now, the reason Wegmans is so successful, let me give you a little definition. They're a high-end grocery store. They're a high-end grocery store in the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic, like I said earlier. The reason they have this amazing service on the outside, innovative, wonderful, boy, you love being there, is because they have the culture on the inside. Do you know how important it is to be one of the top 100 best work companies to work for? Do you know what they came in? They came in seventh in the country out of 100. But guess what? The same company that innovated in grocery tried their hand at hardware. And after several years, they failed. A chain of stores, hardware stores, known as Chase Pitkin. How did they fail? Let me give you one brief example of why they failed. This is a newspaper article that came out when they shut their doors back in October of 2005. I saved it because there's something very important here. You heard Scott talk about how one of the guiding principles is innovation. Listen to this. When asked, the owner, Wegmans, why they failed at hard work, because I said, look, how do you make it at grocery commodities? How is it so unique? How do you create such a following at grocery that you can charge more than everybody else? And in fact, you know that the owner of Wegmans said, you know what, I'm proud to say that you can get the same loaf of bread, same pound of meat, same gallon of milk, same stick of butter across the street for a little bit less, but you won't. You're gonna pay more at my place because you can't shop like you can shop at our place anywhere else. It's a unique experience. We innovated the shopping experience. Do you know that Alec Baldwin and his whole family are from Syracuse, New York, and I'm from Syracuse, New York? Alec Baldwin was on with David Letterman one night, and he said, I've been trying for years to get my mother to move to California. The weather in Syracuse is horrible. And I'm not gonna argue that fact, it is. David Letterman says, well, why won't you move to California? And he said, because there's no Wegmans there. How's that for a commercial? Now listen, why did he fail at hardware? Here's why. Here's what the article read. But the success of Wegmans being so utterly different in the grocery business never successfully rubbed off on Chase Pitkin. Ready? While Wegmans invented and innovated in the supermarket world, Chase Pitkin imitated and mimicked in the home center business. Ladies and gentlemen, let me give you the definition of innovation. Wegmans didn't invent any new food. They were selling things from people who were supplying it to them. And innovation here's the definition of innovation. A product or a service, or even an invention, does not become an innovation until it becomes something that transforms another person's life. That's an innovation. You don't have to invent anything new. You just have to invent how you sell the old stuff. So I want to ask you this. Oh, we're going backwards. Did I do that? What's your brand? I'm good at talking, I just stink at technology, forgive me. I want to ask you this. What do people think when they see or hear your name? When somebody sees your name or hears your name, what do they think? What is the thought process that goes on about your brand? Now, I want you to do me a favor. You see the word think, strike it, and replace it with the word feel. What do people feel when they see or hear your name? Do people feel anything when they kind of associate with what it is you do and who you are? Or do they just have a recollection of who you are, where you are, and what you sell? If people don't have, and I want you to think about the most important people in your lives from professional to personal. And when you think about them, you kind of get an emotional connection, kind of this relationship. If people hear your name and they don't get that kind of an emotional rise, you're not communicating effectively. You're not serving the right way. You don't have the culture. I want to show you a very serious video on the art of communication. Please watch.
Das hier ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Küstenwächters. Das Gerät und das Gerät. Überlebensradar.
Mayday, mayday. Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you... Over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
That has nothing to do with my presentation. Somebody emailed that to me. I said, that's funny as heck, and I'm going to share it with these people. Folks, I just showed you a few brands, and I could talk about a lot more, and I even mentioned a few others. They're considered cult brands. Now, I don't want to offend, and I know a lot of people get uncomfortable with this term when I use it, but please let me describe it and define it for you. You see, I did a presentation a few years ago when I was all done, and I had a series of them through the week, just a different group coming in each time. The director said to me, how do you think you did after my first presentation? And I said, I don't know, that's kind of a loaded question. Why don't you tell me how did I do? She said, I thought your presentation was wonderful. She said, but I'm very concerned about your language. And I'm thinking, I'm starting to sweat. I'm going, oh my God, did I drop F-bombs and I don't remember it? What did I say? I said, what happened to my language? And she said, you kept using the word cult. You can't use it here. It's a very bad word. So let me tell you how I explained it to her. When it comes to business in this context, to be a cult brand is the pinnacle. You've made it. You want to know why? Here's a definition of a cult brand. Their customers will blindly follow them. They will, without question, do what they ask them to do, and without argument, pay what they ask them to pay. Have you ever heard anybody standing in line at Starbucks arguing over that price of coffee? Never. You think people try to negotiate Harley? They get in line for a year to 2 years to pay full price. Why? Why do they go, sure, here you go? Are these stupid people? No. These are some of the most educated, informed people in the world. Why then do they do this? Two very good reasons. Number one, they trust the brand. Folks, you know as well as I do, think about this, we only buy from people we trust. Is that correct? The brand has never done them wrong. It's never lied to them. It's never steered them wrong. If it did make a mistake, it took the high road, they trust the brand. Number two, the brand enhances their life. I want you to remember something. When somebody walks into your store, and it's just a typical transactional level of service, and then they walk back out again, they're not going to become a loyal customer. If somebody walks in and for whatever reason, they feel better walking out than they did before they walked in, you just enhance that moment and that day. That customer begins to turn into a loyal customer. That's how people become cult brands, by trust and enhancement. Now I'm going to explain to you how this works. Dr. Abraham Maslow was a behavioral psychologist. He passed away in the early 70s. Abraham Maslow spoke, wrote, trained, lectured all over the world on behavioral psychology, and as he's doing so, he's becoming the godfather of brand building. How does a behavioral psychologist become the godfather of brand building? I'm going to tell you how. He taught us a couple of very important things. Number one, he said, branding is not about messaging, about blank open promises, about trying to become clever and creative. He said brand building is about understanding human behavior and working with it, not exploiting it, taking advantage of it. Don't be that person, but understanding what makes people tick. And you know what else he taught us? And today, science continues to prove it every single day. Do you know that nearly 95% of every choice, purchase, decision you and I make, from relationships to buying things, all those things, almost 95% of those are based on emotion? Do you know that the majority of your day, you're making decisions subconsciously? The majority of our thoughts, we can't even think about them, but they're actually driving our decisions. They're subconscious. 95% of everything you and I do is based on emotion. Now, I have a lot of people come up to me after this and say, I don't buy that. Why not? Because I'm a rational person. I remember doing all the homework and all the research and all that, and before, I would never do that. Sure you do. But you know what we do as humans? Believe this. We emotionally commit to something or someone, and then what we do is all the research and the homework to justify, to rationalize that emotional commitment. Let me show you how this works, please, on a scientific level. This is your brain. Don't worry, this is the most cerebral I'm going to get on you all day. Need new material. Here's how it works. Let me take you very quickly through the brain. The reptilian part of the brain, oldest part of the brain, is 100% automated and 100% responsible for survival. We don't have to think about things. We get thirsty, our brain tells us to drink. We get hungry, our brain tells us to eat. We get tired, our brain puts us to sleep. Automated. Now, the next part of the brain is the limbic. This part of the brain is 100% responsible for memory and mostly emotion. Every emotion you and I feel, love, anger, fear, desire, hatred, all those things are coming from the limbic. You hear people all the time going, oh man, I should have gone with my gut. No, you should have gone with your limbic. Your gut stores and processes food. That's what it does. Now, here's why I'm telling you this. The neocortex is the youngest part of the brain, 100% responsible for processing language and data. And here's why this is important. You see, in business, when we're talking to employees, when we're communicating with customers, when we're putting a marketing and advertising message out there, we talk all about what we have, what we do, what we do, and then how we're going to do it and how much it's going to cost. And we never talk about why we do what we do. We never talk about our purpose in life. We never talk about our real mission. We never talk about our real core principles. We talk about what it is we have and how we're going to sell it to you. And guess what? When we do that, people can't hear a thing you're saying. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to give you two presentations. I'm going to actually give you the same exact information 2 different times, very different ways. And here's what you're going to do. You're going to decide, based on the 2 different presentations, which one you would be more inclined to kind of get engaged with. okay? Now, I want you to know something. This is a very true story. So here we go. I belong to a foundation. The foundation was created to educate parents, grandparents, caretakers. By the way, you could take this off the screen if you wouldn't mind. Caretakers of children of young ages, toddlers and little kids. It was created to educate them on the dangers that lie in and around the home. Now, the foundation is especially focused on tip-over accidents. You know, TVs and dressers and bookshelves. So what we do is, listen to this, the foundation created a website. We printed thousands and thousands of brochures. We go out and we buy anti-tip straps. We repackage them. We go to trade shows, parent groups, daycare council meetings, pediatric offices. We speak and then we give away these straps. And we're trying to encourage parents and caretakers and grandparents to be more careful to secure the furniture, prevent these accidents from happening. Now, I want you to be honest. I asked you earlier to be honest. Based on that presentation with all the other charities vying for your attention, raise your hands if you'd be inclined to get involved. Not a single hand out of 400 or 500 people. Okay. Same exact information, different presentation. Here we go. Raise your hands, please, if you have children or grandchildren. Okay. Put your hands down and thank you. I want you to do me a favor. You must do this. You have to play along. If you raise your hands, if you have a child or grandchild, close your eyes right now, please. Please close your eyes. I want you to think of one of your children. I want you to truly picture and feel with your heart this child. If they're a little teeny baby, what it feels like to give them a bath and tuck them into bed. If they're a toddler, what it feels like to toss them around on the floor, play at the park. If you haven't seen them in a long time, what it feels like to see them that one time a year. Feel the love, please. Now I want you to imagine you just got a phone call and you'll never see that child again. Open your eyes, please. That's the call I got. September 11th, 2012. Standing at a gate at DFW, 20 minutes from boarding, my cell phone rang. It was my hysterical wife. She called to tell me that our 2-year-old granddaughter was just killed when she pulled a television on top of herself. Now, please, I don't want your sympathy, and I don't know how to say this without being harsh. I don't need it. But I want to tell you a story. Shortly after the funeral, my wife and I were sitting around one night sharing a bottle of wine. And we just couldn't get our heads around this. And I was truly angry. And I kept saying to my wife, how does a 24-pound baby pull a 150-pound television on top of herself? I said, this has to be the freakiest accident in the history of the world. How did this happen and why did it happen to us? Oh my God, were we mad? Next morning we got up, we started doing research on the computer. Do you know what we discovered? Every 11 to 14 days in the United States alone, a child is killed by a television or a piece of furniture. Every 11 to 14 days. My granddaughter wasn't sick. She was healthy. None of these kids had these, grave illnesses. They're all healthy, little kids trying to be kids. But you know what's happening? People are not securing their furniture. So my wife and I decided we're going to do something about this. And let me tell you how this happened. My granddaughter was 1 month shy of 3. My daughter was a single mom. She had a living room, and in the living room, she had a big tube-style TV sitting on a TV tray with a drawer that had all the DVDs. DVD player on top of the TV. My granddaughter was starting to get to that age where she could do things on her own. Opened up the drawer, took the DVD out, stood on the drawer, and boom, it came down on top of her. When we started thinking about how this happened and we saw the statistics, we said, we're not going to allow this to happen. Can't do it. So my wife and I started this foundation, which, by the way, is now in 6 different countries. We started this foundation, and here's what we did. Listen to what we did. We created a website. We printed thousands of brochures. We go out and we buy anti-tip straps, repackage them. We go to parent groups, daycare council meetings, pediatric offices, and we give them away as we're educating. My wife and I and our entire organization of volunteers are bent on making sure this preventable accident never happens again. Now, I want you to be honest, and I'm not going to give you the name of the foundation. That's not my agenda. But based on that presentation, raise your hands if you'd be inclined to get involved. The whole room. Can I tell you why? You know why. Because you felt it. Because it meant something on a personal level to you. Can I tell you something? No matter what you're doing, if you're in management and you're talking to an employee, if you're an employee and you're talking to a customer, no matter what you do, if it doesn't mean something to me personally, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Do you know that a book was written that said you must be believed to be heard? And in it had a chapter dedicated to very famous people who either made it or didn't make it based on their inability or ability to communicate. One of the people they talked about was Michael Dukakis. Does anybody remember that guy? You know what's so funny? I don't get it. Every time I say, does anybody remember that guy, I get laughter. Like, what a clown. Michael Dukakis lost in 1988 to George Bush. Michael Dukakis didn't lose because he was a dumb man or a man with bad policy or a bad man. He was actually a very wonderful man, family man, and he had very decent policies. The reason, and you look it up, the reason that Michael Dukakis failed, the primary reason is because he had no ability to communicate on an emotional level. Michael Dukakis would sit there behind a desk, the camera would be on him, and he'd sit there with his big bushy eyebrows, if you remember this man's face, and he'd go, my fellow Americans, and everybody on the other side of the TV went, and he lost. He lost. Do you know that JFK was 10 points behind Nixon, very close to the election? You want to know why? Because every policy of his was either written about or spoken about on the radio. You want to know when he blew past Nixon and never turned back? Their very first live national TV debate. JFK turned to the camera, smiled, and went, my fellow Americans. And the entire country went, oh, there's our guy. That's our man. You can't be heard unless you're believed. Folks, I'm telling you right now, we're not rational animals. No matter how much you try to figure out how rational you are, you're not. We're built, we're engineered to respond to emotion. We need to be rational. We need to be able to make the right decisions. We need to have leadership that knows what they're doing. We have to have all these things. But in order to run a business that has a culture like a Wegmans and like a Starbucks, you have to lead with your heart. People don't choose rationally to listen to your message and then have a feeling about it. They choose to listen to your message because they have a feeling about it. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's day of transaction, just cold interaction, you know what we thrive, what we crave? Sincere experiences. We want authenticity. We want something that matters to us. Let me tell you about an experience I had in Houston, Texas, several years ago. I'm in Houston. I had an early morning program. I had several hours before my flight. So I'm in my rental car heading back to the airport. As I'm heading back to the airport, I'm admiring homes on each side of me. I look over to my left, and there's this giant home with a big picture window. In the picture window, it has a flashing neon palm. Underneath it says, psychic, your future told, your future told. I decided to stop. I'd never been to a psychic before. So I decided to stop. So I pull into the driveway. I walk through the front door. The beads are hanging. The incense are burning. Oh, I'm expecting Miss Cleo. And out walks a very normal middle-aged lady. She said, good afternoon. I said, good afternoon. So, hey, what's the deal? What are we going to do here? She said, well, for $100, I will tell you your future. I said, I'll tell you what, for $50, tell me my past. Tell me about my family. I want to see how legit you are. She said, very well, I can do this. She takes my money. We walk into a little room. We sit across from each other. In between us is a little table. On the little table is a crystal ball. So she starts looking into the crystal ball, and she's going, oh, yes. Oh, I see your father. And I said, okay, good. She said, your father, he drives a beer truck in Milwaukee. I went, wrong answer. Guess you're not as good as you thought you were. My father's retired. He lives in Utica, New York, with my retired mom in a little teeny white house. He's never even left the area. So she looks back at the crystal ball, and she looks up at me, and she goes, oh, no, I'm very, very sorry. She said, that man in Utica, New York, that is your mother's husband. Your father is definitely driving a beer truck in Milwaukee. Ma, you got some splaining? Folks, we've all had experiences, good and bad, and some so insignificant we can't even remember them. But the truly powerful experiences stay with us for how long? Somebody shouted out. Forever, for a lifetime. Guess what? Experiences that are powerful don't just stay with us, they change us. They mold us. They dictate what we do, how we live, how we buy. They dictate our behavior. Everybody in this room, you've emerged into the person you are through the relationships and the experiences you've been through. Let's give genetics some part of that, but the majority of your behavior and your actions are based on the experiences and the relationships you've been through. Experiences will dictate what we eat, what we drive, where we drive to, what kind of person we date, who we're going to marry. Let me give you an example. You're in retail. Get out of your own business for just a minute, okay? Think of any other retail store, anything at all. If you've had a miserable experience with a store, think about this. The store could be right next to your house. You'll drive right past it, go 10 miles out of your way to get to any place but that place. Am I correct? All right? Now I want you to reverse this. If you've had a series of wonderful experiences, you walk in, oh my God, you know, they know me, you know them, oh, it's just a wonderful feeling. You could have 2 or 3 competing stores all around your house, all selling the same stuff. You'll drive right past all those stores and go well out of your way to get to your store. Am I right? Now it's not just a store, it's your store. Your store, your pet groomer, your pediatrician, your hairdresser, your dry cleaner. Why is it yours? Because you have a loyalty to them. Here's the big question. Why in the world would you have a loyalty to a place way out there that sells the same stuff as all these places right here? You want to know why? Because it's not about the stuff. If we have any manufacturers or suppliers in the room, I'm going to apologize, but there's no such thing as product loyalty. You think people are loyal to things? They're not. There's brand loyalty. People are not loyal to things. They're loyal to the expectation of what those things will do for them. They're loyal to the expectation of what these people will provide for them. And as long as the expectation is at least met, they're going to continue to come. When the expectation falls short, it's not about the product, it's about the experience. They're moving on. People are not loyal to things. I'll give you an example. I did a series of 1 week long, 8 hours a day training session for a big convenience store company based out of the Carolinas called Family Fare. Every day they brought a couple hundred people in, and then we did an 8-hour program. Next day the same. Now, when we were preparing for this program, Lee Barnes, the president, was sending me emails of interactions between him and some of his employees and him and some of the customers. And he sends me this email. Now listen, true story, I saved it. The email says this: Dear Mr. Barnes, my wife and I and kids just moved to Florida. We've been driving around for a few weeks. We can't find a Family Fare store. Can you please tell us where to find one? He wrote him back. He said, I'm very sorry, but we're only in the Carolinas at this point in time. We're not in Florida. My apologies. An email comes back in 24, 36-point type, all caps. What? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Go somewhere else and buy all that stuff. He didn't want to. You want to know why? Because the culture at Family Fare was such that customers actually made it a point to go out of the way to stop there on the way to work and stop there on the way home. They probably didn't need anything. Maybe a paper, maybe a cup of coffee. They could get that anywhere. Because he created a culture that people loved working there, and the customers felt the people loved working there. Experiences will dictate what we do and how we live. Remember this, please. The only thing people are loyal to is the expectation of what things will do for us. You heard me talk about perceptual reality earlier. This is basically every senior executive in the country. Except for you, Scott, not you, and I didn't mean that. I just forgot who's signing my checks, gosh. Here's a definition of perceptual reality, and it's a very dangerous thing. It's our imagination. You see, what we do is we spend the majority of our time in this little space. And while we're there, we're conjuring. We're just creating. You know, it's like dreaming at night. We can be whoever we want to be. We can be with whomever we want to be with. We can do whatever we want to do. It's just an amazing place to be. And we spend a lot of time there, but here's the danger. You see, while we're there, we actually conjure things up about ourselves that just aren't true. We conjure things up about our level of service and about our place of business that just isn't true. You want to know why it's not true? No matter how technically perfect and wonderful you think it is, if the customer doesn't feel it and see it, that's truth. Let me give you an example. I did a program in Columbus, Ohio a few years ago at a Hilton, a large Hilton. And the morning of the program, I went down early to have breakfast. I sat at a little table. On the little table were 2 coffee mugs. Before the waitress came over, I always do this. I examine the cup, make sure that it's clean. And the cup in front of me was filthy. So I took it and I swapped it out and I took the other one that was clean. Waitress came over. She said, would you like a cup of coffee? Yes, please. When she was done pouring it, I picked up the dirty one and I handed it to her. And I said, you might want to send this one back through the dishwasher. It's pretty filthy. Here's what she did. She goes, oh, that's not dirty. It's stained. And she put it back down. And then she said this to me. Everybody thinks they're dirty. If you knew how much coffee we pour and how many times we run them through the hot dishwasher, it just bakes it on. Nothing we can do about it. Walks away. Now, any managers in this room, listen carefully. Where do you think she gets that mentality? from management, from her supervisor. Don't worry about it. If people think it's dirty, just explain to them that it's not dirty. So I went home a couple days later. I went to my office. I called Hilton headquarters. I got the vice president of customer care. Lady on the other line, I told her the story, and she said, oh, my goodness. And I said, yeah. I said, now, look, I'm not calling because I want to credit, but I want to talk to you about this. I said, now, look, how much would it cost to replace this mug? And she said, I have no idea. 50 cents, a quarter, I don't know. And I said, do you know what a meeting planner does? She said, no. I said, a meeting planner spends probably half of their life on the road scoping out properties, making sure that it's conducive to bring their convention, their conference in. I said, what if I was a meeting planner and I decided that I'm not ever bringing a group into a Hilton property because you don't care if you serve food on dirty kitchenware? She said, that'd be very costly. I said, are you at a computer? Yes. Do you have internet? Yes. I gave her my website address. Up pops my homepage. There's a picture of me speaking on stage, Scott Deming, international speaker. Wow, that's you? I said, that's me. I said, I also have a blog. I blogged this story. Oh my God, you didn't. I said, don't worry, and I didn't. I said, I did not use your name. I just said a very large international chain. I didn't tell her that I tell thousands of people every week live who it was. I said, what if, knowing how many people I reach on a global level, I blogged your name about this? She said, that'd be very costly. I said, I'm going to say one more thing and I'm going to let you go. I said, I believe this young lady. Technically, that was a clean mug. I get it. I said, but I didn't think it was clean and nobody else thinks it's clean. I said, what do you think? She said, it's a very dirty mug. And as soon as we get off this call, I'm going to send an email blast out to every property to let them know what happened. Here's why I'm telling you this. It doesn't matter what you think is going on in your store. If a customer perceives it as something different, it's something different. I worked with an organization, a very, very large organization that supplies product through every convenience store and grocery store in the country. In kind of preparation of this extended contract, we were doing all sorts of programs. I went driving around for a few days with a couple of their directors and one of their regional sales guys. Now, this guy was bragging about what an amazing relationship he had with all of his customers. So he's going on and on and on about what he does and what they do. And so we stop at what he called his most important, biggest convenience store. And it was a huge place. I can't remember. It had to have 10 or 12 pumps. And it was just gigantic. Walk in, there were people working there, and there's people making pizza behind the counter. And there's the owner behind the counter. The man walks in with his binder that I would have needed a backpack to carry around, this ginormous 40-pound binder. He walks in, he goes to the owner, hey man, how you doing? Good to see you again. Boosh, the whole place rattles. He opens it up, he starts flipping through, and he starts taking stuff off the shelf and putting stuff on the shelf. So I'm walking around and I'm doing my thing, and this is all this guy's doing. I decide I have to go to the bathroom. I walk into the bathroom, and I was afraid for my life. I'm not exaggerating. I actually didn't even go. I walked in, I was just like, what do I touch? How do I touch it? It was filthy, 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 filthy. I was going to order a slice of pizza. I was starving. I walked out of there. I had no appetite. I'm not eating in this place. We get into the car, and I said to this guy, I said, hey, let me ask you a question. When was the last time you were in his bathroom? Oh, I don't know. Why? What's the big deal? I said, because it's filthy. He goes, so? I said, so? Do you know that research shows that if a customer walks into a public place and they walk into a bathroom and it's dirty, you know what the number one thought is? They don't care about me as a person. If he cared about me as a person, he would have worried about me catching something by touching that doorknob. So I said to him, here's what you need to do. You need to start looking at this business from his customer's perspective and start helping him to realize and understand that technically no matter what he's got going on out here, if there's something awry and me as a customer gets it, feels it, then that's reality. That's reality. And here's another thing. Customer satisfaction versus customer loyalty. If you have anywhere in your corporate mantra that your mission is 100% customer satisfaction, our mission, 100% satisfaction, get rid of it. Burn it if it's in a brochure. Get it off your website. Why would I say this? I'll tell you why. There's absolutely no correlation between a satisfied customer and a loyal customer. None. You know what the definition of a satisfied customer is? They'll stay with you till the next best deal comes along. That's the definition of a satisfied employee, by the way. They'll stay with you till the next best offer comes along. How do you get from satisfied to loyal? You have to shatter expectations. Now, here's a question. How can you shatter an expectation, let alone even meet one, if you don't know what your customer's expectations are? Pull a customer aside every now and then and have a conversation. When you go shopping, when you come into a convenience store like this, what is your expectation of your experience? They're going to go, what? I want to know, what do you get that you get everywhere, but what would you love? What would you truly love that nobody else is providing you? What's your expectation and what would you love? When you start getting this kind of information, pull your staff together and start sharing it and say, we need to build a process that blows the expectations out of the water. Then you take them from satisfied to loyal. Ladies and gentlemen, we expect to get what we want. When you go to a store, to a restaurant, don't you expect to get what you went for? Yes? Okay, let's say you go and you don't get it. Geez, you're upset, you're disappointed. Let's say you go and you do get it. Are you blown away? No. You wouldn't have gone if you weren't expecting to get it. You know what blows you away? The process. You see, you don't want people talking about what they're buying from you. You want to talk about the people they're buying it from. That's how you build a brand. That's how Family Fare became the Family Fare they are. We expect to get what we want, but here's what's happening. Do you know in a recent study, within 2 months, nearly 40% of everybody surveyed said they cannot remember the name of the people, and in many cases, the name of the place they bought their stuff from little ticket to big ticket items. They may remember what they paid for it, but they can't remember who they bought it from. You want to know why? And I'm not going to candy coat this. Because service in America stinks. It stinks. And in fact, globally, it stinks. Can you imagine that? We're forgetting where we're buying things. That's how bad service is. Here's a little anecdote for you to keep you thinking about this little process. An older couple out on a walk. Lived in a retirement community, ran into another older couple, and the one guy goes, oh my God, 2 weeks ago, my wife and I went to this Italian restaurant, and he's bragging about it, but all he's talking about is the wine and the food and this and that. So finally he goes, and I'm telling everybody, and I'm telling you, you gotta go, you gotta go. So the guy goes, okay, we'll go. What's the name? Ooh, the name. So he's staring at his wife. Oh man, you need to help me here, help me out. It's a flower. Comes out in the spring. It doesn't last very long. Smells nice, very beautiful. Long stem, thorns. The guy goes, Rose? That's it, Rose. Hey, Rose, what's the name of that restaurant you and I went to? Men. All right, folks, I'm about to share with you the secret to life. You interested? Guess what? You already know it. In fact, you know everything I'm talking about. Here's the problem. We either forget about it or we're too busy to do it. Can I tell you something? I'm not philosophizing up here. I'm telling you stuff based on the greatest research, the greatest minds on the planet over years, and I put it into a 60-minute presentation, easy for you to swallow, easy to implement. It's not philosophy, it's fact. And in fact, you can't afford to not live like this. You can't afford to not serve like this. Here's a secret to life, and everybody here gets it. In fact, you know what's really weird? We're actually hardwired for it. It's in part of our brain. Studies with chimpanzees and bonobos show that we are empathic by nature. This is the secret to life right here, empathy. You want to know what the definition of empathy is? The ability to feel what another person's feeling, pain or joy, literally, wow, feeling it. But here's the most important part of empathy. It's not just feeling it, it's the deep, sincere desire to do something about it. That's empathy, and that's a secret to life. You put yourself in your customer's shoes. You put yourself in their shoes every time they walk into the door. You put yourself in your employee's shoes every time they come into work, and you ask yourself this question. If I were that person looking at me, what would I love from me? What is nobody else providing in this industry? What would I love? Let me put it on a personal level because this is kind of tough to get your head around. Raise your hands if you still have children living at home, please. Good, a lot of you. Okay, here's what we do. We go home at the end of the day, and we look at our home world from our perspective, all right? We go home, we had a we got yelled at, we got lost and stuck in traffic, we lost some business, whatever it is. We walk through, we're looking at the home from our perspective, the door comes flying open, Mommy, Daddy, guess what? Okay, all right, here comes a significant other. Hey, hun, you wanna know what? You know what, just, where's the remote? Give me 45 minutes. I need to unwind. It's what we do. It's what we do because we're looking at our world from our perspective. Now I want you to try something. I don't care what happened to you during the course of your day, and here's why I'm saying it, not because I'm cold. I'm saying it because your kids don't care. Unless your kids are involved in your business, do you honestly think your kids care what you do for a living? I want you to try a little experiment. The next time you're home having dinner, sitting around a table, start talking about work. Start talking about business. Then look at your children's faces. Watch how quickly their eyeballs glaze over and roll into the backs of their heads. They don't care. They don't care about what you do, how hard it was, how much it cost, how long it took, how bad your legs hurt. They don't care about all that stuff. You know who else doesn't care? Everybody. Nobody cares. So try something. You go home at the end of the day, that door comes flying open. Change your perspective. Put yourself in your little kid's shoes and ask yourself this. If I were that little boy, that little girl looking at me, what would I love from me? No matter what happened to you, if I were them looking at me, what I love from me. Ladies and gentlemen, I heard a child psychologist once on the radio, and it changed so much about my outlook. He said the biggest mistake we make as children, or as parents, is we dismiss our children's trauma. He said we don't do it because we don't love them. We do it because we consider it insignificant. He said, we got these big problems. We got careers to manage and bills to pay and a mortgage to pay for and love's going haywire. He gave a couple of examples. He said, your 4-year-old daughter, she comes running up to you screaming, crying, Mommy, Daddy, I lost my teddy bear. What do we do? What do we do? Oh, come here, sweetheart. Come here. Calm down. Calm down. Okay, calm down. Okay, go play. Want to go get her a teddy bear? Yeah, this weekend. It's a teddy bear. You know what this psychologist said? That little girl losing her teddy bear is the same amount of pain and trauma as you and I losing our mortgage, discovering that we just lost our home. That's how bad it hurts. And she can't get her little 4-year-old head around it. Here he gave another example. Your son comes home from school. Mom, Dad, Ricky called me a jerk in front of all my friends, and then they laughed and ran away. What do? Fathers, dads, what do? Oh, come here, you knucklehead. Toughen up. Don't be so silly. Go on, go play. Don't be so silly. The psychologist said that little boy having his friends turn on him is the same amount of pain and trauma as you and I discovering our spouse is cheating on us. He said he literally inside wants to die. We don't see it. We just don't see it because we're so wrapped up in ourselves. You know what else we do in business? We look at customers as a cog in our wheel of commerce. Every time somebody walks in, there's an opportunity for a sale, instead of, wow, there's an opportunity for a relationship. I promise you change your perspective. You put yourself in other people's shoes, and you ask yourself that magical question, if I were them looking at me, what would I love? It will immediately and forever change everything about you, from relationships to revenue stream. Now, I'm looking down, and I'm kind of out of time here, so I'm going to blow through these next 2 slides, which is a shame because this was very cool, and it would have changed your lives forever, but oh well. I'm going to end it on this chart, or this little graphic here, and then go to a poem. But this is a very telling and very important graphic, and I'll tell you why. First of all, every one of us was born after the 9, and unfortunately, inevitably, it's just part of life. Every one of us is going to experience that thing on the other end. But you want to know what the most important part of this graphic is? It's that thing in the middle. That's known as your dash. It's also known as your legacy, your life. It doesn't matter when you're born or when you die. It matters what's going on in the middle of it. Now, here's the thing I want to say. I want you to think about the number of people that you come in contact with every single day. First of all, why are we on this planet? What are we doing? That's why I said right off the bat, if somebody said, what do you do? How would you define it? Think about the number of people you come in contact with every single day. Now, I want you to think about this. With that power of influence, with that ability to truly make a difference, what are you doing with it? Are you doing anything at all with it? This is it. This is your dash. Make it happen. Make it spectacular. Linda Ellis wrote a poem, and I took a little piece of it, and I want to share it with you right now. And she writes, for it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live in love and how we spend our dash. Here's my parting wish, and I mean this, that every one of you in this room has the most amazing dash of all. Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you.